Toronto in 2018 was a city under siege, not by invaders or natural disasters, but by pigeons. They were everywhere, strutting across sidewalks, clogging park benches, their coos a mocking soundtrack to urban life. The city called them flying rats, disease-carrying vermin that had multiplied unchecked for a decade, turning public spaces into a mess of feathers and filth. My name's Daniel Harper, and it was my job, alongside my partner Clint, to keep their numbers in check. We worked for the city's pest control division, a thankless role that had us scaling rooftops and dodging droppings to manage the ever-growing flocks. Our methods were crude, sneaking into nests, stealing eggs, hoping to slow their reproduction. But the birds were relentless, laying new clutches as soon as we cleared the old ones. It was a losing battle, like bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon, until I stumbled across a pilot project in a scientific journal. Researchers in another city had replaced pigeon eggs with wooden substitutes, tricking the birds into brooding over fakes for months, halting their breeding cycle. The results were staggering: a sharp drop in population without a drop of poison or a single trap. It was genius, humane, and, best of all, cheap. I pitched it to the city, got the green light, and ordered a batch of replica eggs, ready to save Toronto from its feathered plague. Clint arrived at our cramped office one morning, lugging a wooden crate that looked like it had been through a war. Straw poked out of every crevice, and the thing smelled faintly of mildew. "Christmas came early, huh?" he grinned, setting it down on our workbench with a thud. I was buzzing with excitement, prying open the lid to reveal hundreds of eggs nestled in the straw. But my enthusiasm faltered. These weren't the sturdy wooden eggs I'd expected. They were thin, light, hollow, cheap plastic shells, like the kind kids crack open for Easter candy. "This is it," Clint said, picking one up, his brow furrowed. "These don't feel like the real deal." He was right. We'd handled enough pigeon eggs to know their weight, their chalky texture. These were flimsy imitations, probably ordered from some sketchy online supplier. I cursed myself for going with the cheapest option on Two, a knockoff site known for cutting corners. But I shrugged it off. "They don't have to fool us," I told him. "Just the pigeons. Trust me, this'll work." And it did. We spent weeks climbing high-rise rooftops, swapping real eggs for fakes under the cover of dawn. The pigeons fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, brooding over the plastic shells like they were precious. By month 2, we saw fewer fledglings, fewer flocks. I was proud, damn proud. I'd found a safe, eco-friendly way to tame the city's pest problem, all for a few $100 and some elevator rides. 3 months in, the cracks started showing, literally. I was halfway up a downtown high-rise when Clint called, his voice sharp against the howl of rooftop wind. "Some of our eggs broke," he said. I stepped out of the elevator, boots crunching on gravel as I climbed the final staircase to the roof. "No big deal," I replied, trying to sound calm. "We'll replace them." Storms had swept through Toronto recently, fierce enough to rattle windows and topple trees. I figured the flimsy eggs had fallen from nests and shattered. "Should have been wood," I muttered, annoyed at the supplier's bait-and-switch. But when I reached the nests, I froze. The eggs were broken, yes, but still tucked neatly in their twig and straw cradles, right where we'd left them. Had the pigeons wised up, pecking through the ruse? Or were the shells too fragile for Canada's brutal weather? Across the city, Clint found the same, broken eggs, untouched nests. "We're gonna have to start over," I told him, defeated. He laughed, ever the optimist. "Let's hatch a new plan." I groaned at the pun. "Don't yoke with me," I shot back, but his humor couldn't lift the sinking feeling in my gut. We couldn't let the nests sit empty, or the pigeons would breed again, undoing our progress. I sent Clint to replace the broken eggs with our remaining stock while I scoured online for better suppliers. Budgets were tight, so I reluctantly reordered from the same seller, promising myself I'd push for more funding next year if the plan proved its worth. To rule out sabotage by clever pigeons, I installed a security camera on one rooftop, its lens trained on a cluster of nests. I doubted the birds had the brains to attack the fakes, but I needed to be sure. In the weeks that followed, strange reports trickled in odd animal behavior across Toronto. A woman swore she saw a pigeon climb a tree, scuttling up the bark like a squirrel. Another claimed a chipmunk killed a neighborhood dog, tearing it apart with unnatural strength. A man reported an injured cat, but found only its pelt empty as a discarded glove. By the fifth report, I was uneasy. These weren't confined to one area, they spanned the city and its sprawling suburbs. Rabies? A new disease? The spread was too fast, too wide. I was about to dig deeper when Clint stormed in, scowling. "Those shitty eggs broke again," he said, slumping into his chair. I forced a grin. "Crack a smile, would ya?" He tossed his worksheet on the desk. "Nice one," he chuckled dryly. "You get the footage?" I asked. He pulled an SD card from his pocket. "Movie time," he said, popping it into the computer. The footage was mind-numbingly dull. Pigeons preening, flapping, sitting on nests. A squirrel appeared, only to be chased off by a flurry of wings. We fast-forwarded through days of avian monotony, my eyes heavy despite the coffee I'd chugged. Clint dozed off, head lolling, but I kept watching. Then, in the dead of night on the video, something happened. A pigeon flew off its nest, perched on the edge, and peered inside. I leaned closer, expecting it to peck the egg. Instead, the shell cracked from within. My jaw dropped. These were plastic shells. Nothing should be inside. Had we missed a real egg? But what emerged wasn't a chick. A puff of dark, smoky vapor spilled out, curling like a living thing. The pigeon, inches away, inhaled it. It froze, then thrashed violently, like a seizure was tearing it apart. From its beak spewed a chunky liquid that evaporated on contact with the air. The bird's body deflated, collapsing into a flat husk as if its insides had been sucked out. Then, its chest bulged, inflating unnaturally. Its wings bloated, its neck swelled, its midsection stretched into a grotesque parody of a pigeon, an animal pelt draped over the wrong frame. Stump-like arms sprouted from its throat, clawing at the cement. With jagged, insect-like movements, it skittered over the roof's edge and vanished. I rewound the footage, heart pounding, and watched it again. And again. It was no trick of the light. "Clint," I said, shaking him awake. "You're not gonna believe this." He rubbed his eyes, grumbling, then froze as the video played. "This is bad," he whispered. "I know," I replied. We watched it a few more times, hoping for some rational explanation, but none came. Exhausted, we went home, praying sleep would clear our heads. Maybe we'd misseen it. Maybe it was a glitch. But deep down, I knew better. Clint was already at the office when I arrived the next morning, his face pale, eyes sunken with dark bags. "You watching it again?" I asked. "Not exactly," he said, voice hollow. I kept going. He'd stayed up, scouring the remaining 2 days of footage. "More of those things," he said, pointing to the screen. I leaned in and saw it. A nest with eggs too large to be pigeon or replica, glistening in the sunlight, coated in a viscous sheen. "It laid them," Clint murmured, his hand trembling. A chill climbed my spine. The reports, tree-climbing pigeons, murderous chipmunks, empty pelts, flashed through my mind. Were these eggs the source? "We need to call the authorities," I said shakily. "We are the authorities," Clint snapped, his voice fraying. The phone rang. Another report. A deer slithering along a riverbank, body sideways, head upright. I tried to calm the caller, but a sound stopped me cold. A crack from Clint's desk. A puff of smoke rose from a broken shell, identical to those on the rooftop. Clint bolted to the bathroom, hand over his mouth, retching. I dropped the phone and ran to the door. "But, Clint, you okay?" Silence. Then a wet, gurgling sound like boiling water. Terrified, I shoved the workbench against the door, heart racing. The noises stopped, then bang. Clint slammed against the door, nearly splintering it. Again and again, the workbench inched back. I pushed with all my strength, knowing he'd attack if he got out. Then a crash, the bathroom window. He was gone. I locked myself in the office, reports piling up, mutated animals, unnatural movements, pelts left behind. The eggs were spreading something, a contagion that hollowed out its hosts, reshaping them into abominations. We'd planted over 700 across Toronto, and now they were hatching, reproducing. Days later, Clint returned, or what was left of him. I was on the phone, fielding panicked calls, when a shadow moved in my peripheral vision. I dropped the receiver and locked myself in the maintenance closet, heart pounding. Outside, silence. No breathing, no footsteps. I knelt, peering under the door, and regretted it instantly. A mass of flesh slithered across the floor, torso folded, arms and legs unnaturally aligned, head shapeless at its midsection. Its mouth gaped like the scream, gray eyes useless. It moved toward Clint's desk, and I heard a squishy, gooey sound, like a slime toy bursting. It stopped, started again, then fell silent. I stayed hidden all day, ignoring hunger, too terrified to move. At night I crept out. The thing was gone, but Clint's desk held 2 massive eggs, coated in slime. I ran to my car and drove to Kingston, vowing never to return. In Kingston I thought I'd escaped, but the pigeons here look wrong. Subtly off, their movements too precise, too human. They're learning to mimic their hosts better, blending in. The contagion's spreading and I don't know how to stop it. Those eggs, those cursed shells, are out there hatching God knows what. I'm done, but someone else needs to finish this, before Toronto and maybe the world becomes a nest for something we can't comprehend.